Hi, I'm Richard. I'm the Sales Tax Administrator for the City of Longmont. Today we're going to be talking about the City of Longmont and sales tax. So, the City of Longmont is a home rule city. That means we administrate our own taxes. We're one of about 71 cities in the state of Colorado. Denver, Boulder, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs are some of the other ones, so larger populations. We've been a home rule city since the 1950s. Our sales tax code differs from what the state does. It's very similar, but it does differ a little bit. If you have any questions about that, please contact our city. So, what is sales tax? Sales tax is anything that's collected and remitted by a retailer on sales from any kind of transaction in the City of Longmont. Basically on the transfer of title, possession, or use of tangible personal property. Tangible personal property will be very important later on. The money that we receive is used for different things all over the city. Operating the city, capital improvements, streets, sidewalks, traffic lights, purchasing open space, public improvements, and then of course public safety, police, fire, and courts. Those are all things that the money is used for. What is tangible personal property? It means the personal property that can be seen, weighed, measured, felt, touched, stored, transported, exchanged, or anything of that manner that is perceived to the senses. That means software, other kinds of things, ebooks, anything that's brought in digitally. So who pays the sales tax? The sales tax is paid by the end user. In other words, the person that's actually purchasing the thing. And it happens at the point of sale. The end user basically will be the one that uses or consumes the item. So that means anything that's being used, anything that's being consumed, food, etc., all is subject to sales tax. Any kind of thing that we consider tangible personal property. Sales tax is calculated at the point of sales. In other words, the location where it is purchased or delivered to. So what is the sales tax rate? As you can see on the slide, there are 4 components to the sales tax. There's the state of Colorado, RTD, a special district, which is science and cultural, museums, etc., and Boulder County. There is also the City of Longmont. Now the first 4 are all collected by the state of Colorado, and then they submit it to each of the people every month. The City of Longmont, of course, collects their own. The sales tax rate for Colorado is 2.9%. RTD is 1%, Special District is 0.1%, and Boulder County is 0.985%. The City of Longmont is 3.53%. That's the amount collected and remitted to the different taxing authorities by the retailers, by the people selling the items. Now, if the sale is located in Weld County, you need to contact our office because the sales rate can be a little different because Weld County does not collect sales tax like Boulder County does. Now let's talk about point of taxation. Point of taxation, delivery or possession of the point of taxation, when a purchase is made at a business or a physical location in the city, physical nexus we call it, the point of taxation is when the merchandise is taken by the buyer. For an out-of-city or state sale, there is something new which is called delivery taxation or economic nexus. It is when item or items have been delivered to a buyer who lives in the City of Longmont from a place that's outside of the City of Longmont. There was a change made in the city code last year based on the Wayfair versus South Dakota Supreme Court decision. That happened in 2018. So in the Supreme Court case, it was ruled that basically sales tax is due at the point of sales. And that's when the item or items that were purchased for business without physical nexus or a physical presence in the city are delivered into the city when the end user actually receives that merchandise. This is called delivery taxation or economic nexus. There was another change made kind of in the same vein is marketplace facilitators. That is that the marketplace facilitators that connect online marketplace sellers from the outside to buyers inside of the City of Longmont. It is their responsibility to collect, report, and remit sales tax on items delivered to the home city and the marketplace sellers. businesses like eBay, Amazon, Etsy, and other kind of marketplace facilitators. Those are people that are actually going to collect and remit them to the City of Longmont directly. Let's talk about licensing. On any business or person engaged in business in the City of Longmont, they are required to obtain a sales and use tax license. They could have economic nexus or they could have physical nexus. In other words, if they reside in Longmont, if they are an employee or agent of a group that are inside of the business, employee or agent on duty at the location of the city, owns, leases, rents, or otherwise exercises control over real property or tangible personal property, or if they make deliveries. That would be the economic nexus. So what kind of licenses do we have in the City of Longmont? Well, the City of Longmont has a sales and use tax license. That's our traditional one. There is a one-time fee of $25 for processing, but it does not expire. Once the account is open, it stays open until you ask us to close it. There's a special event or temporary sales tax license, good for an event 30 days or less, but it has to be one event, and we typically say one event per year. What other City of Longmont licenses or permits may be required? Well, liquor licenses, marijuana special retail licenses, secondhand dealers or pawnbrokers, sexually oriented businesses. Permits may be required for mobile retail food vending permits, short-term rentals, arborists, people that are doing cutting of trees, and trash haulers. All of those have different agencies within the city that you'll need to contact. At the end, we'll talk about which groups of people are the ones you're going to speak to. When you're going to do a sales and use tax license with the City of Longmont, you can apply online. As you can see on the slide, there's our site, https://longmont.munirevs.com. Munirevs is our sales tax software. Like I said, there's a one-time processing fee, and it goes on until you ask us to close it. Allow approximately 2 weeks for the license to go through, but typically it's a little faster, and we just send you an email letting you know what the account number is, the license number is the same, and how to set it up so that you can actually go online. Filing frequency is a main part of our licensing. Basically, you could be monthly, quarterly, annually, but it's based on the amount of revenue. In other words, how much sales tax you're going to be paying to us every month. If it's $50 or less, then basically you can be quarterly. If it's more than $50 per month, then you would have to be monthly. Annual is specifically for people that will not be collecting any sales tax, so 100% service businesses. Just to let you know, there are other departments that will be reviewing the sales tax applications, just in case there's questions or things that they have. If you're opening a restaurant or something, the fire department, they may contact you. The planners and zone people may want to contact you. And then if you're doing a mobile food truck, then you're going to be talking to the folks over in planning and zoning. They basically will make sure that everything's inspected and that everything is up to date. Also, short-term rentals, so Airbnbs, et cetera, those will also be inspected and will need a special permit as well. Does a contractor need a sales and use tax license? If they have a City of Longmont contractor's license and do not collect any sales tax, then they do not need one of our licenses. That changed in September of 2020. How do I make changes to my accounts? If you are located inside of the City of Longmont, you can go online to the same place and fill out one of our account change of information forms. If you are located outside of the city, you can contact our office and we can make the changes on the phone. Purchasing or selling a business. To find out if the business that you're purchasing is in good standing, contact the seller and have them come into our office. With their permission, we can tell you if the business is in good standing, or if it has a sales tax and if there's a balance due. If there is a balance due, the new owner assumes the liability for that seller. The seller must file a final return and close the account, and it must have a zero balance due at close. The buyer must apply for a City of Longmont sales and use tax license for the new owner. With most business sales, there are assets that are being purchased. There could be tables, chairs, desks, computers. Those assets purchased will have a tax obligation. Taxes on those will be filed on a one-time initial use tax form, and it is due the 20th of the month following when the business starts. If a business has a change in entity type, in other words, from a sole proprietor to an LLC or corporation, please contact our office. That could cause a change in the license. We would need to close down the current license and we would have to reopen a new one. Okay, let's talk about use tax. Use tax is a complement to sales tax. It works similarly to sales tax, however, it's due when items were purchased and no sales tax was collected. This commonly occurs when the seller fails to collect the sales tax on a taxable transaction. Here's an example. If an item was purchased online without paying City of Longmont sales tax, then the person purchasing and using the items are responsible to pay the City of Longmont for the use tax. One of the biggest groups that owe use tax are businesses buying items to be used in their own businesses and don't pay any sales tax for the purchase. Another example is when a business purchases items to be resold to an end user, then they pull items from that inventory and they use them for gifts, samples, or prizes. Tangible personal property that no sales tax was paid because it was to be resold. And the people that are going to be using it are actually not paying for them at all. This is subject to use tax. So the seller, the person that's actually using the gifts, samples, or prizes, will need to pay use taxes on those based upon the amount they actually paid for them in the beginning. Initial use tax form. Let's talk about that. As stated before, the initial use tax form is a type of use tax on items being purchased due to the sale of assets when purchasing a business. That is a one-time form. You fill it out once and then you're done. Another example of use tax is when you're pulling a building permit. Contractors will go to the building inspection department within the City of Longmont to pay their tax when pulling the permit. This is calculated by using 50% of the total project cost as an estimate of that as material costs, and then the use tax is based on that. They'll be collecting City of Longmont, but they'll also be collecting Boulder County tax as well. And the reason because we have a deal set up with Boulder County. They collect the taxes when people register their vehicles. We collect on building permits, and we exchange the amounts for each of the places once a month. How has the new destination taxation or economic nexus changed use tax? The destination taxation has changed use tax tremendously, as well as sales tax as well. Prior to the destination taxation, it was common for retailers outside of the City of Longmont to not charge any City of Longmont sales tax. Shipping items via common carrier into the City of Longmont. This would mean that the purchaser inside of the city was not charged sales tax, therefore they would be responsible to remit use tax to the City of Longmont. Now destination taxation is calculated based on the buyer's address when shipping to the buyer's location. So when someone in the City of Longmont buys something, they would have things delivered there, they take possession, that's when the taxation would be done, and there would be sales tax done. In essence, basically, use tax may be a thing of the past with all of the new rules going on for sales tax. So going forward, you probably won't see very much of use tax going on, at least not for individual people. Exemptions for sales tax. Now let's talk about what things could be exempt from sales tax. These are the kinds of things like nonprofit businesses, 501c3s, a business with a State of Colorado exemption certificate. Churches are a good example of that, and other nonprofit groups. Another groups are government agencies, federal, state, and city offices, and schools. They're exempt when they're purchasing things for their own use. As stated before, anybody that's getting a Colorado Department of Revenue resale license can buy things that they're going to be reselling tax-free, because the taxes will be based upon the end user, the people that are actually using or consuming those items. Service businesses, those that are 100% service and will never collect sales tax, are also exempt from sales tax of the City of Longmont. Other kinds of exemptions are machine and machine tools used in manufacturing, defined as the end product must have a different and distinct end form from the product named from its original component or components. The next group is basically R&D equipment, or research and development equipment, used for measuring and inspecting equipment. For the first 2 years, only after the purchase, of the use of equipment are exempt from sales tax. Please contact our office if you have any questions or concerns or want to know if you meet the qualifications for these exemptions. How an invoice can change the amount of taxability. Here's an invoice on something that's typically broken out between labor and materials, or labor and parts. This particular one is Norm Speed Shop, and basically you have labor and it's set at $100. You have the part, it's set at $50. So the tax amount is only on the parts, not on the labor. When you group it together, that's how the tax will be run. If you separate them out on your invoice, you may not have to collect anything but materials. The one exception to that is when everything is together in one item. If it is not broken out, then it's taxable for the entire amount of the invoice. Here's an example of something that has shipping and handling broken out. Shipping and handling in the city of Longmont is taxable for Longmont, but it is not taxable for the state. So you'll notice in this one that there are taxes on the parts at 8.515. That's the tax rates for everybody. Then you have for shipping only the tax rate for the city of Longmont, 3.53%. You'll see that that's how it's broken out and that's how it's paid. Here's an example. If for whatever reason you're in a food truck or at a bar or somewhere where it's easier to collect a round amount of money, and basically you want to back out the taxes after the fact. Here's an example that shows hot dogs and coffees, something on a stick, and burgers that are basically, set at a set price. We have a total amount of $39 for all of these goods that someone purchased. We take a calculation of $39 divided by 1.8515, which is the tax rate, and it tells us that the sales are actually $35.94. When you run a calculation after that shows the taxable sales of $35.94, and then you take that times 0.08515, then you end up with a full tax rate of $39. That's a way you can back out the taxes after the fact. And there are a number of businesses, small businesses, etc., that do these kinds of things where transactions are really fast. So the City of Longmont sales tax return forms. When are the return forms due? They're always due on the 20th of the month following the period. So on a monthly filer, it would be the 20th of the month after the filing of the month. If it's for quarterly, then it would be after 3 months, January, February, March, it would be due in April, etc., etc. Annual filers would be due in January. So everybody files in January, whether they're monthly, quarterly, or annual. You can go online to our filing online at that same web address. You can create a login, and using that login, you can tie your business with that account, and then you can actually go online and file your returns. So what are the fields on the form? Well, the first couple of fields have to do with gross sales and service. The first one is the full gross sales and service, in other words, what you made before taxes, and then you add any bad debts that you collected over that time, and the total amount goes on line 2B. After that, you have all of the deductions. The deductions are going to be everything from a non-tax service sale, so it's all services, to sales to another licensed dealer that they're going to be reselling it. It could be that you're going to be shipping it out of town. It could be bad debt that you're charging off. It could be trade-ins, for example, vehicles and other things. It could be the sale of gasoline and cigarettes. Those have a special tax on it separate from that, and the city does not collect sales tax. Could be to a government or charitable organization. That's those 501c3 businesses, churches, other kinds of organizations, or taxation offices, schools, etc. Return goods, things that were purchased that needed to be returned. Any kind of prescription drugs or prosthetic devices, those things are non-taxable, and any other kind of deductions. The example of that is the food stamps or gift cards. Those are perfect examples of things that are non-taxable. The reason why gift cards are not is because when the person actually uses the gift card and purchases the item, they will be paying tax at that time. So if you're looking at the example on the screen, you can see that gross sales and services were $25,000. You also collected an additional $250 in bad debt. So that makes the total of that $25,250. Now we're going to deduct $1,500 for sales that were service sales. We're going to deduct $2,500 for sales to a licensed dealer that's going to turn around and resell the items. We're going to deduct $1,000 for things that are shipping outside of the city. And then we're going to deduct $250 for, in this case, we'll just say gift cards. So the total amount of deductions is $5,250. When you deduct that from the total amount of gross sales and service, that brings us down to $20,000. When you take that $20,000 times 0.353, which is the City of Longmont rate, you end up with $706 of tax. The next section is the vendor fee. The special vendor fee is basically a gift that we give back to you for filing on time. If you're filing on time, you get to deduct the vendor fee of a maximum of $25. So it's 3% of whatever tax is owed to a maximum of $25. In this particular case, they just didn't choose to do that. So the next section is the ones for 10, which is anything subject to use tax. These are for any purchases typically used by the business itself that didn't have any City of Longmont sales tax purchased for it. In this case, we did $3,500 at 3.53 equals $123.55. You'll notice that the use tax rate and the sales tax rate are identical. All of them are 3.53%. The next section are the penalties and interest for anybody that filed late. Basically, there's a 10% penalty if you did file late. It's 10% of whatever tax was owed, and an interest rate of 0.5% for each month that it's late. In other words, the interest accrues. The penalty will always stay the same at 10%, but the interest does accrue every month for as long as you're not paying that tax. Also, as stated before, if you are late for any reason, you do not get the vendor fee. So that amount of money will not show up. So now we have a sales tax amount of $706. We have a use tax of $123.55, so a total tax due of $829.55. Now comes the question, how do I make a payment? Once you've submitted your return online, you can use the SIPA payment portal. It's connected with the online application, and it will accept e-checks or credit cards or debit cards. If there is an amendment you want to make to your return and you've already filed your return, contact our office. Typically, we'll have you send in a hard copy. We'll determine whether you get money back or whether you still owe money. Then we can make an adjustment and you can make that payment. Now we're going to talk about audits. How are they chosen? Audits are routine. Sales and use tax audits are conducted on all businesses, regardless of the industry or the size of the business. Basically, the records to be reviewed are for 36 months, including but not limited to fixed assets, purchase invoices, sales invoices, supporting schedules for returns, and other supporting documentation. All those things will be collected by the auditor. If you have any questions about the audit or what's going on with the process, you can contact our office or the auditor that made the initial contact about the audit. We can answer all your questions. So now let's talk about frequently asked questions. How do I know if my business will be allowed at the desired location? You contact the planning department at 303-651-8330 or email, and they can tell you whether or not that location is going to be appropriate for your business, if it's zoned correctly, etc. You can also check with building inspection to see if there's any building modifications that must be made to your house or business, wherever it may be, to see for that particular business. Do I need a sign permit? Yes, all business identification signs, wall-mounted, whether it's freestanding or not, are required to have a sign permit. The only businesses signs that are exempt from this are on window signs. And once again, please contact the planning department if you have any questions. The location of my business was used as an auto repair shop for the last 30 years. Why do I need to check and see if I can continue to run an auto repair shop at that location? Well, over the years, zoning regulations may have changed, and so you need to check with those folks to make sure, depending upon the kind of work that was done there, whether it's still applicable and can be used in that capacity. Again, you're going to be contacting the planning department to see if there's any zoning changes or any things that may impact your business. I want to open a business in my home. Is that allowed? The city allows home-based businesses, home occupations in many cases, subject to certain specific guidelines. A home occupation affidavit is located in our current sales and use tax application. This section is required to be completed when a sales and use tax application is filed. Does the city allow mobile food trucks and/or push carts? Is there separate license for this type of business? The city permits mobile food vendors in most non-residential zoning districts. All mobile retail food vendors are required to have a mobile retail food vendor permit, even if they are only participating in one special event. The permits are $100 per year and are good for 365 days from the day they are issued. I want to sell, serve, or manufacture alcohol at my business. Do I need to do anything special? Well, yes, depending upon the nature of the business, you will need a local liquor license and/or license from the state. For additional information, you can contact the city clerk's office. Other resources when starting a business. I'm going to do a brief overview of the different kinds of things that can help. The State of Colorado Department of Revenue, I've put on this slide the website for them. They're a marvelous resource to help with both state and with city regulations as far as being able to answer questions what the state of Colorado files for, etc. The main offices are in Denver. They also have offices in Fort Collins, Colorado Springs, Grand Junction, and Pueblo. Another great resource is the Colorado Secretary of State. You will register your business name. Here's the website, sos.state.co.us. You will register your trade name, and that way, when you get your number and registration from them, you can open up a checking or savings account in the business name. And of course, there is the federal government, irs.gov. Apply for an EIN or an employer identification number. That is, if you have an LLC or corporation, that becomes the business's official identification number. Some additional city resources is the city clerk's office. That's for liquor, retail marijuana, secondhand pawnbrokers, etc. Planning and development services for mobile retail food vending. Business permits, contracting, licensing and sign permits for any kind of sign permits. Longmont Fire Department for any kind of fireworks stands. The Forestry Service for tree trimming. And Public Works and Natural Resources for private trash haulers. Our contact information for Sales and Use Tax Division. We are at the City of Longmont's building at 350 Kimbark Street, Longmont, Colorado, 80501. Once again, I'm Richard. I'm the Sales Tax Administrator. We also have Joel, who is our Sales Tax Accountant, or Sue, who is our Sales Tax Technician. You can contact us either from email on the slide or our phone number 303-651-8672. Please feel free to contact us. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Thank you for spending time watching our City of Longmont Sales Tax Seminar.